There are certain evenings in life that arrive quietly. They do not announce themselves as important. They do not carry fireworks or grand declarations. They simply unfold, gently, like the turning of a familiar page. This is one of those evenings. David Whitaker was 58 years old when his CEO told him she had arranged a blind date for him. Now at 58, most men are not expecting surprises like that. David had silver at his temples, a calm steadiness in his voice, the kind of posture that comes from years of showing up on time and doing the work without complaint. He had been divorced for nearly a decade. His daughter was grown. His house was quiet now, perhaps too quiet. He worked as operations director at a mid-sized consulting firm in Chicago. He had been there 22 years, long enough to watch the world change from paper memos to video calls, long enough to see young interns become managers with children of their own. And his CEO, Margaret Collins, had led the company for the past 15 of those years. Margaret was in her early 60s, sharp-minded, direct, but not unkind. She had built the firm with grit and discipline. Yet those who worked closely with her knew she carried something softer beneath that polished exterior. One afternoon, after a quarterly review meeting, she had asked David to stay behind. He assumed it was about staffing or budgets. Instead, she folded her hands on the conference table and said, almost casually, "David, you've given a lot to this company. When was the last time you did something just for yourself?" He had smiled politely. "I take long walks on Sundays." She didn't smile back. Not right away. "A friend of mine owns a restaurant downtown," she continued. "Beautiful view, quiet atmosphere. I made a reservation for you this Friday. 7 o'clock. He blinked. "A reservation?" "Yes," she said, "with someone I think you might enjoy meeting." David nearly laughed, nearly, but something about her tone told him she was serious. "Margaret," he said gently, "I'm not sure blind dates are in my season of life." She studied him for a long moment, then she said something he would think about for weeks afterward. "David, we don't age out of companionship." There was no teasing in her voice, only certainty. And so, that Friday evening, David found himself riding the elevator up to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Chicago skyline. The lights of the city shimmered beyond the glass walls, the kind of view that makes a man remember how small his own worries really are. He wore a navy suit he hadn't taken out in years. His daughter had insisted he buy it after his divorce. "Dad," she had said, "you deserve to look sharp." The host led him to a small table near the windows. A single candle flickered between two neatly folded menus. He felt slightly foolish. 58 years old, waiting for a blind date arranged by his boss. He checked his watch. 7 o'clock. And then he saw her walking toward him. She was in her early 30s, tall, graceful, wearing a deep blue dress with delicate lace along the neckline. Her blonde hair fell softly over her shoulders. She wore simple black-framed glasses that gave her a thoughtful, intelligent look. Not flashy, not dramatic, just quietly confident. She smiled when she saw him, not a nervous smile, a warm one. "David?" she asked. "Yes," he said, standing quickly. "And you must be—" "Emily." She extended her hand. Her handshake was steady. They sat. For a moment, the age difference hung in the air like an unspoken question. David cleared his throat. "I should tell you, my CEO arranged this." Emily's smile widened. "I know," he blinked. "She's my mother." Silence. Not awkward, just surprised. David leaned back slowly. "Margaret Collins is your mother?" "Yes," Emily said gently. "She speaks very highly of you." He let out a soft laugh. "I didn't know she had a daughter. She doesn't talk about her personal life much at work." He nodded. That sounded like Margaret. The candlelight flickered between them. "I hope you're not upset," Emily said. "I told her I'd trust her judgment. She said you were kind, steady, and that you'd probably try to talk your way out of this." David smiled despite himself. "She knows me well." They ordered dinner, simple things, salmon, a glass of white wine. As the city lights glowed beyond the glass, they began to talk. Not about careers, not about achievements, about music from the 70s, about vinyl records, about Sunday dinners with grandparents who insisted everyone sit at the table together, about how the world feels faster now, and sometimes a little louder than it used to. Emily listened carefully when David spoke. She did not interrupt. She did not rush. She told him she worked as a physical therapist, that she believed healing often came more from patience than from force, that her mother had raised her to respect integrity more than ambition. "I think she sees something in you," Emily said softly. "Something steady." David looked down at his hands. "Steady isn't very exciting." "No," Emily replied, "but it's rare." The word lingered. Rare. As the evening unfolded, something unexpected happened. David stopped feeling self-conscious. He stopped calculating the years between them. Instead, he found himself remembering who he used to be before disappointment had made him cautious, before loneliness had settled into the quiet corners of his home. He found himself laughing, really laughing. At one point, Emily shared a story about teaching her grandfather how to use a smartphone before he passed away. The patience, the humor, the way he insisted on writing passwords on sticky notes. David felt his throat tighten. My father did the same thing. They sat in that shared understanding, two people from different generations, connected by something simple. After dinner, they stepped out onto the terrace. The air was cool, the skyline shimmered around them. "I need to be honest," David said gently. "When Margaret arranged this, I thought it might be awkward." Emily smiled. "I thought so too, but it hasn't been." "No," she said, "it hasn't." They stood side by side, not touching, just looking out over the city. "May I ask you something?" David said. "Of course. Why did your mother really arrange this?" Emily was quiet for a moment. "She worries about you," she said finally. "She says you show up for everyone else, but no one shows up for you." David swallowed. "It is a strange thing to learn that someone has been quietly paying attention to your loneliness. She lost my father 10 years ago," Emily continued softly. "She knows what it feels like when the house goes quiet." The wind moved gently around them. David nodded. For the first time in a long while, he felt seen, not for his title, not for his reliability, but for the quiet spaces in his life. When the evening ended, they did not make grand promises. They simply agreed to see each other again. Slowly, respectfully, because some connections are not about urgency. They are about presence. Over the months that followed, David and Emily met for coffee, for walks along the lake, for simple dinners where conversation flowed easily. There was no rush to define what they were. They built something steady. Margaret never asked for updates. She never interfered. She simply nodded once when David thanked her. "You deserve the chance," she said, and perhaps that is the heart of this story. At 58, at 60, at any age, we are still deserving of companionship, still deserving of kindness, still deserving of someone who listens when we speak about old vinyl records or the way our fathers wrote passwords on sticky notes. 1 year later, David found himself back at that same rooftop restaurant. The same view, the same candlelight. But this time, he was not nervous, he was grateful. Emily sat across from him again in a blue dress, her smile familiar now, comfortable. "I'm glad my mother meddles," she said with a soft laugh. "So am I," David replied, and as the city lights shimmered beyond the glass, he realized something simple. Life does not end when chapters close. Sometimes, when we least expect it, someone quietly turns the page for us, and we are invited, gently, to begin again.